But we're gonna start with battleships, and I wanna basically not tell you how to skill a specific ship, but I wanna give you a bit like a close idea of which captain skills you might be able to skip, or which you like no need on any battleship, because there is a few. And we're gonna get started now, looking at all the skills we have right now in the first line. We're gonna go over all lines, and if you enjoyed it, please be sure to like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to grow quite big there, and everybody who joins us will be a new addition and helps us a lot to, spread the word of ships. So we're gonna have Gunfeeder, we have Demolition Expert, we have Consumer Specialist, and we have Emergency Repair Specialist, Incoming Fire Alert, and Preventive Maintenance. I'm gonna tell you one thing right now. This skill is not worth it. This skill is literally the one skill you don't need to take this skill at all. It's literally the worst tier 1 skill. Now, what it basically does is, it blinks in your upper right UI when somebody shoots from more than 4.5 km on you, and there's a salvo incoming. First of all, that can be very, very confusing because it can distract you. Second of all, usually when you're in engagement, most of the time at least, and you can remotely pay attention to the minimap and what is going on in front of you, you will always see people shooting you. Also, I come later in combination with this one. What I would take usually is Gunfeeder, depending on the ship. Gunfeeder is great because you have the time to adjust very fast to a different scenario. Maybe you need to use HE instead of AP because suddenly the guy is fully angled, or there's gonna be DD soon, and then Gunfeeder can really help you in these situations. There's one ship, or there's exactly 3 ships where I wouldn't take Gunfeeder, and that's Incomparable, Yamato, and Shikishima. Now, of course, Super Ship Satsuma as well. Basically, these are ships that have insane overmatch capabilities, where no matter of the angling, you can pretty much punish every ship from cruisers to battleships very, very well, and there's literally never really a need to switch to HE. Besides obviously Destroyer, but even if you hit them with AP, you do massive amount of overpen damage. So these are literally the 3 battleships where I would not skill Gunfeeder on, or you don't need it necessarily. Demolition Expert is something I don't take on any BB as well, because unlike on cruisers or DDs, where you have high DPM output, battleships are all about alpha strikes. Even if you play an HE battleship or like a Conqueror, which has, I don't know, I need to guess right now. I'm gonna take Thunder. I think Thunder has 69% fire chance. You get 1% more, which is actively cut in half because of tier 10 hull reduction. But basically, it's not worth it. You have already high fire chance anyway, and that 1% is not making a difference. Meanwhile, on destroyers or cruisers, you have heavy DPM per minute, like heavy damage output with constant firing, and there that 1% can easily add up. But this one is not worth to take on any battleships. Same as this one, it's totally overrated. Now, consumable preparation and reload time is a pretty decent skill. The more consumables you have, the more worth it is taking, especially with something like a super heal, it's nice, or when you have Hydra or so on. Definitely then it's a thing you can take. Not necessarily needed all the time, but definitely worth looking into depending on how many consumables you have. Emergency Repair Specialist basically gives you a faster damage control party cooldown and a repair party cooldown. Again, not a bad tier 1 skill. You can think about taking it. Yeah, it's up to you if you want to use it. Wargaming itself recommends it also for BBs. It's definitely not a bad pick. But basically, you want to definitely skip Demolition Expert and Incoming Fire Alert. Preventative Maintenance is really depending also on what ship. If you play, for example, I'm gonna take just examples. Ships with high turret armor, such as Kremlin or Yamato, you don't really need it. And they're not really important for,
Hello there.
let's say, secondary survivability or something. You don't really need necessarily preventative maintenance, so it's also most of the time a pretty skippable point. However, if you have ships like, let's say Schlieffen, where you have torpedo tubes that need a bit more survivability, or the secondaries, then preventative maintenance is actually a very good perk that you can definitely think about taking into a build. Like, again, it depends on what can you possibly lose in your ship and what is important in the ship. Again, Kremlin has, let me guess now, I don't know the value, 600 millimeters of turret armor effectively. Under 95% of the circumstances, you're not gonna lose the important part of Kremlin, which is the turrets, or on Yamato. And this is exactly why this is not really an important perk for them. Meanwhile, when you're in a Schlieffen, where you rely kind of on the secondaries as well, or you're playing a ship with very light turret armor, such as Illinois, then it's definitely worth taking preventative maintenance. Moving to the second line. Now, grease of gears. There's one rule for me how you can save 2 points on a battleship. Basically, you take grease of gears on every battleship. Besides, and this is where you can vary your build and get 2 extra points. If the battleship has a base turret traverse of 30 seconds. Kremlin. Who else has 30 seconds? Ohio. I won't need to think right now. But basically, all the battleships that have 30 seconds turret traverse, which is very, very fast. You don't need to take the skill. They're fast enough and you get 2 points you can pretty much spend on anything else. So, like, you can, for example, say, oh yeah, finally I can take Brisk instead, or I can take AA Defense Expert and so on. So, you take this on all battleships pretty much that have slow turret traverse, and every battleship that have 30-second turret traverse, you can skip it. It's not nearly necessary. Moving over to the IFHE. You do not. There is one exception, and I will explain it in a bit. You do not take IFHE on any battleship. There is one exception, and only one. No other battleship should ever take IFHE. It's a straight up nerf to your ship. The only battleship where you take IFHE is the Schlieffen secondary build. That's it. Why do you take it on Schlieffen if you build into secondaries? Because then all your secondaries are able to pen 32 millimeters, or over 30 at least as well, which is the more important threshold than the 32 actually. So you get an insane damage output boost on your secondaries. There is no reason, literally no reason, to take it in any other battleship. Not a single one. Every BB has more than enough HE penetration on the main guns. No, don't take this skill. Very important. Do not take this skill at all costs. Besides on a full secondary Schlieffen build. That's it. Because you have always enough pen. The things you cannot pen, which mostly are super high tier CV decks, you will not be able to pen anyway. Or it's not worth it investing points into it. And every other class you can smash with HE anyway. So far, just to remind you, no need of this, no need of this, no need of this. Super skippable. Brisk. Even on GK, because GK has 32mm base pen on the secondaries anyway, so you don't need it. Plus, you usually should not build this GK into secondaries anyway. Brisk. I love this skill. I don't have it on every BB, mainly because I try different builds. But I do feel like Brisk is an absolutely amazing skill. It's only 2, costs only 2, and you get a 10% speed boost when you're not spotted. Now again, if you have a CV game and he's on your flank, it's nowhere near as effective as without the CV on your flank. But basically, it gives you the ability to pretty much rotate faster on the battlefield. I'm a big fan of it because it's basically a straight up 10% speed boost that you can use a lot of times. And for example, on ships like Vermont, which are generally tend to be very slow, That extra 10% can be very vital to quickly reposition, and the Vermont goes nearly 27 knots then, which is very fast. I think 26.4 if I'm not wrong, which suddenly makes Vermont pretty fast. And also ships like Incomparable and Schlieffen and Vincent and St. Vincent and so on, they suddenly reach the magic threshold of 40 knots, which is insanely fast. You are literally able to switch positions very, very quickly. There's more ships, Rhode Island as well. I mean, pretty much every BB is really, like, can profit from it. Moving on to Vigilance. Vigilance is a double-edged sword. In theory, it's not a bad build, it's not a bad perk. But you gotta make choices where you want to put your points. And Vigilance, while it's not a bad perk, it's not good enough to take for me. Like, usually if you pay attention to minimap and developments and just paying attention to the general battlefield, you should be most of the time, unless you get completely surprised, be aware of where potential torpedoes come from. Let me give you an example. You are in Ohio. You have not seen any DD. But you are spotted. You're constantly spotted. This let alone should tell you that there is probably, let's just say it's a DD and not a cruiser. Or a submarine. This should let you tell alone already that there is currently something around you, and you should keep maneuvering. You shouldn't go in a straight line. And things like these, if you pay attention to them, you don't really need vigilance. I mean, I get people who take it, but I think it's not worth 2 points. It's really only if you feel very uncomfortable with your surroundings. And there we come to priority target. I know a lot of people... This is a personal bias towards me. This is a personal bias towards me, by the way. I know a lot of people don't take priority target on their battleships. But I like taking priority target for 2 reasons. Basically, this skill, which you really don't need to skill, and this skill combined are in here. Now let me explain. That sounds a bit weird. But basically, if you have a destroyer captain and he switches from guns to torpedoes, the aiming indicator goes up and down quickly. That gives you roughly an idea or a chance that the torpedo might have just switched, that the DD might have just switched to torpedo armament and launched torpedoes at you. At the same time, if I see on priority target 3 or 4, let's say as a number, I know 3 or 4 people aiming on me. I don't need this skill to know that probably 3 or 4 people will shoot at me. And it gives me a general idea on how much I have to deal and pay attention with right now. Because if it suddenly says 8, it's just a straight example, I know I'm completely getting hammered by the enemy team right now. I need to do something ASAP or it's over. So I'm really a big fan of priority target, and I pretty much take it on any of my BBs. Now I know a lot of people say you don't really need it, but for me it gives so much information that I just love to have it on my ships. Moving over to AA Defense and ASW Expert. Now this is a double-edged sword in a way. I'm not skilling it for the AA. I'm straight up not skilling it for the AA. If I ever take this skill, and I most, if at all, take it only on super heal ships, if at all, really important to know, it's because of the perk below it. Ship consumables, preparation and reload time, minus 40% when your when your AA is active. This is by far way more worth it than the shitty AA buffs over it, which are honestly a joke. I mean, the depth charge damage is quite nice, but otherwise it's a joke. You can take it. If you take it, I would only take it on ships with super heals, or on ships with very where you can lower even faster cooldowns. Like you could run it on an Ohio. I think Vermont also has a 40-second. Vermont also has a 40-second cooldown on heal, right? Yeah, I think Vermont also has 40-second cooldown on heal. You can use it on stuff like this. You can also use it on Monty if you want to, because of the bigger, stronger heal. But you don't need it. Like, this is optional. If I take it, it's simply because of the consumable preparation time. The rest above it, it's a joke besides the death charge damage and not really that important in all honesty. So, yeah. It reduces every consumable. Heal, radar, spotter plane, fighter, whatever you take, hydro. Now, we're gonna move to the third line. Super heavy AP shells. Honestly, I don't take it at all. I straight up, even after they buffed it with the minus 10% fire and flooding damage, I don't take it because I don't see the reason to have such a big downside of way longer fire extinguishing time and recovery time. Plus, in all honesty, if you have a decent battleship salvo on somebody and it's gonna remotely connect, you don't need that additional damage. Use, like, if you're playing a Yamato and you shoot a broadside Zao or something and you get the shells connect, it doesn't matter if you have 7.5% more damage or not, it will explode. In theory, the damage is kind of nice, but I don't see the downsides for it. Plus, we're talking about 3 points. We're talking about 3 points. If this would be a 1-pointer or a 2-pointer, it would be a different story. But 3 points is a lot to invest. So, highly skippable in my opinion. Long range secondary battery shells. Well, I don't really need to go into detail into this one, I guess. If it's a secondary focused ship, such as Schlieffen, you can go for it. For survival builds, you skip it completely. Exceptions where you can run hybrid builds, Ohio, Rhode Island, you can put it in because you have improved secondary dispersion and it can be quite nice to have these additional fires on him. Other than that, completely skippable, only really interesting if you have a secondary build ship, and most of the battleships are not focused on secondaries.
Hello there.
Adrenaline Rush. That's a no-brainer. AR is probably, with Concealment, the best skill in the game. Or the most important skill. It's a no-brainer. You take it on every ship. I'm not joking. Battleships are there to take some damage as well. So you will never always have full HP unless you're a moron who is sitting at A line the whole time. It's a must-have. It's such a good skill. Such a good skill. Nothing else to say. This should be on every ship. I go so far. I have not a single ship where I don't have AR on. This is the skill you take on every ship. No matter if it's a cruiser, no matter if it's a DD, no matter if it's a battleship. I even take AR on a submarine. Despite you don't want to get hit actually in a submarine, sometimes you will. And it gives you such a huge AR buff that you will take. Like, this skill is mandatory on every ship. There's no questioning about it. It's too good to not take it. So, definitely take it. Then we have basics of survivability. It's a pretty good skill, although there's a lot of ways how you can build around it. You either don't take it, you take the additional heal, or you don't take the additional heal and take this. There's like variations here, but definitely it depends. Like, it really depends on the ship you play, because battleships that don't have a lot of heals, you rather take this one. There is certain ships which have more than enough heals, in all honesty. Doesn't Conqueror have 5 heals? Let me check. How many heals does Conqueror have? Does Conqueror have 3 heals or 5? Let me check. 3. Okay, in Conqueror you would take the extra heal. What was it? I think there was a BB that had 4 or 5 heals. I'm not sure right now which one. Most BBs have 5. Was it Monty? Yeah, but I have a Monty probably the skill, right? Okay, yeah. We're just gonna take this right now. Although I like to have like no skills, so it's better. This is better. Okay. So basically, on ships with insanely good heals, or where you have like barely any heals, because some have, I think, also incomparable has only 2. I'm not sure right now. You basically want to take this one. You can skip this one, and you take this one instead, which brings you an additional heal. On ships with a lot of heals, where I think you don't really get more out of the heals in general, like you will not be able to use all of them, you can use this one. What do we have here? I need to actually read this through this one. I can't remember this one. Activates every time your ship receives potential damage equal to 100% of the ship's base XP. A cooldown time of 0.8%. You get another repair once you reach 2 million potential damage. Okay. This one is honestly also only worth it to ships. Like this one is very specific. You can use it, but you don't need it. But if I would use it on ships where you can soak up insane amount of damage. Equals like super heal ships again. Then when you play, for example, a Conqueror or something, or a St. Vincent, where you can just heal up straight up a lot. Having then an additional heal can be nice. Devastation. Like all these ships that have insanely strong and big heals, you can definitely make use of it. I would not use this on, for example, a standardized heal like on a Yamato. It's not worth it. Or on a Mecklenburg. But on ships with super heals, you can definitely use the skill. Other than that, I would probably skip on it. What do we have here? Focus fire training. Aircraft armor and reload time minus 15%. Damage cost blah 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 blah. Honestly, that's a straight up skip. I think this could be eventually interesting if there ever would be a Dutch battleship with airstrikes. But other than that, insta skip. Not worth it. You don't need it. Now, Furious is also again a very specific skill. You can, like, that's why I say with high healing battleships such as Conqueror, Devastation, and so on, where you kind of can, or main with a specific F key, but that's a specific case, you can run Furious as an alternative build to a survivability build. It's like an alternative playstyle where you can take this and basically you can heal fires and floods for 100%. So if you're burning in a Conqueror and you have 2 fires on you, it's not really disturbing you because you can heal everything and at the same time have quite a decent reload buff. Super heal ships, definitely you can take it, although it's really up to you if you still want to go for survivability or you want to go this kind of crazy reload buff with the fires. I would not take it on normal ships, I would not take it on classic BBs, I would not take it on secondary BBs. Both is just a waste, and pretty much you can spend the 4 points better. Manual secondary battery aiming, Schlieffen, that's it. Literally only Schlieffen. There's not a oh, and Libertad. Sorry guys, I forgot our new broken addition to the game. Libertad, good. So Libertad and Schlieffen, that's it. No other ship takes this. Super easy. Not a single other ship. I don't need to go even more over it. Close quarters experts. Increases the main battery reload speed after an enemy has been spotted within your secondary battery range. Changes to secondary battery range, firing range introduced, temporary modifiers are not taken into account. Useless. Absolutely useless. Don't need it. If somebody tells me I take it on my Schlieffen, then I have 10% better main one reload. Yeah, but you give up something. You give up Concealment, which is such a strong perk on Schlieffen because you pretty much have the same Concealment range as secondary range. So, no. Just delete this one. This one is also, this one is just as bad as this one, this one, this one. Just delete them. It looks maybe fun on paper, but don't take it. Emergency repair expert. I said it already. Pretty much very, very, very recommended skill. Very, very good. The only moment where I see you wouldn't take it is either you have already spent too many points for secondaries, such as Schlieffen, or you... yeah, well, you have enough heals. But usually you want to take it because the additional heal is very nice on a battleship. Concealment expert, also, I mean... it's kind of, for me, also a no-brainer. But this is where the community is very, very torn apart. I think Concealment expert is also a must-have skill. Now there's gonna be a lot of people who say, yeah, but Trendless, there's gonna be CV, and he spots you, and then Concealment is useless. If it would be this case, you could also skip it on most cruisers. In the ability to have the best amount of Concealment, even on battleships, can be very important and help you in a lot of situations. I'm always sad. I'm literally dropping a tear if I see Yamato players in my team with 18.1 km Concealment. I see Montanas with 15 point whatever Concealment. I see GKs with probably higher Concealment than their main gun range. Okay, that's a bit over-exaggerated. But basically, for me, it is also a must-have on every BBs. Even on Schlieffen, because so there's gonna be people on Schlieffen saying, yeah, but Schlieffen is brawling. Guys, having the ability to open up your secondaries exactly with your Concealment is such a strong thing. It's such a strong ability. You have 12.5 km secondary range, and you have, I think, 12.6 km Concealment. Plus, if you put Schlieffen speed into that equation, you basically open up directly when you're spotted. That is such an important, that's such a strong perk. And not to mention, there's even battleships with really, really good Concealment that even are better than most cruisers. If I see an incomparable player without Concealment experts, I'm literally dropping my eyes out of my head. You have the possibility to have a ship that has 10.8, 10.3, whatever. You can outspot literally Des Moines, and you're not taking that advantage. It really hurts my eyes. And even with other ships, the amount of times you can use Concealment to disengage is big. It's not like every BB is constantly brawling in the game, because usually you die, you get focused down. Most of the BBs play optimally on medium ranges, which means ships with Concealment, BBs with Concealment, will always be able to go dark unless there is a DD in front of them. Meanwhile, the players that don't take Concealment because they think it's overrated, we're gonna be spotted anyway, will be actually spotted anyway. Not to mention that you can outplay a battleship with no Concealment crazy hard by having Concealment yourself. Let's say you have a GK. GK has 14.1 km Concealment, I think, if you build into it. I would say 80% of the GK players have no Concealment. You have an engagement, you fight it out, you might have done some mistakes, you had like 20k HP. You need to disengage. The other guy has 50. Let's say it was a better trade for him so far. You can go dark, you can drive away, or you can kite away, whatever how you want to call it. You drive away, you keep the other GK lit the whole time, he can't see you, your team can smash him completely. Constantly harass him, while he needs to follow you, but he's not catching up to you, and he will not spot you. This is a very important skill. You should always take it on a BB. I'm so sad. I'm literally sad when I see all the BB players not appreciating the strong factor of Concealment Expert. It's one of those things that I would put next to AR on a level. It's the skill that you take on nearly every ship. It's a must. And on BBs, I don't see a single BB where I wouldn't take it. So, really important skill. And last but not least, fire prevention. I said it once and I will say it again. Fire prevention is a double, it's not only one buff, it's a double. It's double the buff. People always ask me, why is fire prevention so important? I'm telling you right now, the most important buff from it. Yes, you have only 3 fires instead of 4. But you want to really know the best explanation why even the craziest person should take it? You are a battleship. You're having a Smaland player. You have a gunboat DD. You have a cruiser, high DPM cruiser. Where do the people shoot? That's a question for you now, chat. Where do the cruiser players and the DD players usually shoot on a battleship? On which part of the ship? Superstructure. Exactly. Exactly. This is why fire prevention is so important, guys. It splits the 2 fires that are possible on the superstructure to 1. There's barely any BDD player who's actively gonna shoot your bow or stern for extra fires. And you know why? Because they cannot pen your bow or stern. That's why they usually spam the whole time on superstructure. You always shoot where there is no fire, but then you're one of the exceptions. Most people want to see raw damage. Most players want to see raw damage. This is why they usually always shoot the superstructure, Lord Ronnie. Because if you're an ADD and you shoot the bow and stern on the battleship, you do 0 damage. You don't do any damage until you get the fire. And this is why all players keep spamming on the superstructure even if there's a fire on it. This is why this skill is so strong, Chad. This is why this skill is so strong. Yes, it gives you 1 fire less, but the important part is you will always get 2 fires because people tend to spam always on the superstructure. This is why you should take the skill. That's it. People always love to see more raw damage, and I think this is pretty much the best explanation how I can sell fire prevention to you. And it hurts my eyes. It hurts my eyes. I feel like literally 9 out of 10 BBs don't have fire prevention. No matter if it's a GK or whatever, but even ships like Yama and so on, it's crazy. I wish people would see this video and slot fire prevention. I mean, it's a bit sad for me because obviously our damage numbers go down because people would learn. But please, take fire prevention. The 1 ship or 2 ships where you don't take it is if you play Conqueror or Devastation and you run Furious. But usually you always want to take fire prevention, Chad. Also in Schlieffen you might not take it because you need to give it up for the secondary build. But those are exceptions, guys. Plus Schlieffen has a fast cooldown DCP, so you can kind of time the fires very well with that as well. But please take this on nearly every ship. Please, 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 chat. It's such an important... YouTube, also please take this skill. And this is pretty much an overview of all these skills, which one you can skip. There's a fair few you will never take. Again, this one is worthless, this one is worthless, this one is worthless, this one is worthless. Like, these are 4 skills you should never take, for example. They're not worth it at all. You can literally skip them every freaking time. This one as well. And I hope you enjoyed this little overview. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And you channelers out. Good. This was just an overview, and I really hope people take it into attention. That's like the main part. People like raw damage. People really like raw damage, and as long as you can pen this part and this part. Okay, Slava is a bad example. We take Kremlin because Slava actually has no armor in front and back, but DDD players will always shoot here. They always will shoot here. I mean, they might switch to AP if you're too close and you can hit the upper belt. That's a different story. But usually they will always shoot here, guys. Always with HE. They're not gonna shoot here because they won't do damage. And they're not gonna shoot here because they won't do damage. And they will get fucking frustrated if they get for 60 shell hits no fire here. So, this is why fire prevention is so important. If VBs had no superstructure in this game, or superstructure had the same armor and than this, we could talk about that fire prevention might not be as important. But every ship can do damage on superstructure, and this is why they love shooting their chat.